to update all of the details. And in the admin details, you would obviously have your details in here, but as I'm using a training system, it just comes up with the training login. So the status is current, and you would also confirm the ID verification, which is the URU. So in this case, we're going to put electronic ID, and then you would just save that, and that is effectively the client now set up in Office Web. So what you would do from here going forward, if you've obviously not created a client in Office Web previously, you would be looking to do the manual sales process. So also something to bear in mind as well, you don't need to have anything pre-approved for fund switches, so they do not fall under the pre-approval process. Okay, so moving on from here, we would just click on manual sales process, and the details are all correct, and we would just save that. And this then sets up our client, which is Tony Testington, into the system. And what you would do here, just in terms of a fund switch, so you would first of all update your suitability letter. With regards to, it would be basically a shortened suitability letter, and within the suitability letter you would include details such as the reason for the client review, so it may just be that it's an annual review for the client, if the client's attitude to risk has changed or if it's stayed the same, any other reasons for the fund switch, and that may include if the funds have been poorly performing, or the funds are no longer in line with the client's risk profile. You may also include reasons such as market trends, so that may be another reason why the client wants to switch funds. Another reason may be that there's certain changes to the funds, for example, if the fund manager's left or the funds are now close to new business. If the client's circumstances have changed since the last review, that may be another reason why they want to do the fund switch, or any other relevant reasons that obviously you've had the discussion with the client for. So you do need to update within your report the main reason as to why you're looking at the fund switch for the client. Like I say, you do not need pre-approval, so you can just put the case through and submit that as soon as you've had the discussion with the client. Now, what do you need to document in terms of a fund switch? So with the fund switch, you must document all of your advice in writing to the client and upload that onto the Office Web system, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second. If the fund switch is as a result of a review, which generally they would be, if you were to do a review and the outcome was that everything is fine and the client's not looking to do anything, then you would basically upload just a template review, which I'll show you again in a second, and just explain that there's been no changes, and that's just for your own benefit for the future. So if the fund switch, like it says, is as the result of a review, then you must follow the review guidance and template report and incorporate your fund switch recommendation within the report. So if the fund switch is as a result of an ad hoc request, for example, the client just rang you up in the middle of the year and said that I now want to change the fund, you need to send the report to your client to cover off the following points. So that would include the reasons why you're recommending the fund switch, what the client's attitude to risk is and how the recommended funds align to that profile. If the attitude to risk has changed, then the reasons for the change. If there's any tax implications with the switch, and any other information that is going to support your advice. So that would basically be in those two terms. In terms of the review, you would update your letter with the reasons why, and in terms of an ad hoc request, you would do the same. So if we go back to the Office Web system, what you would need to complete here would be a copy of your report to your client, Also, with any fund switch, you do need to provide full research for the new fund that you're going to be moving the client into. So if you're an independent advisor, that would include full de facto research, and that would also need to be documented and uploaded to Officeweb. If you're a restricted advisor and you're going off the matrix, then you wouldn't be required to do that specific type of research. You would basically include fund fact sheets. So you would also upload any fund fact sheets, any illustrations. You would need to include a copy of the ATR profiler if it's changed since the last time of the client, since the last client review or the last objective of the client, or since the last review of the funds. So you would basically include a new attitude to risk profiler if that's the main reason that the client's going to be doing the new fund switch. You would also need to include a copy of your service agreement, so you would need to have that uploaded onto the documents as well. So if we just go back to the Officeweb system, and on the left-hand side, if you just go to Documents and just click on there, this will allow you to upload any relevant documents to our client, which is Tony. So as you can see, and I know you've probably seen the screen many times, if you just go to the Files section, and under Files, if you just go to Add, you can then browse in your desktop or wherever you've saved any of the information. So in this case, we'll just upload the Positive Solutions Fee Agreement. You don't actually need to upload this, but just to show you how to upload the documents. You can obviously upload 5 different documents there, but you can add more if there's any more that you need to put through. It saves you having to go back in and upload them separately. Then you would just click on Upload, and once it's loaded, it'll say yes, and then that's completed. And as you can see, it'll show under the File section. And that will then show under Tony's files for any future reference. So if you go back into the file in the future, that will always be saved, so you can just upload this year in, year out when you're doing your reviews. So when you've uploaded all of your files, they will show under the File section here. And like I say, you would just confirm that the client details are correct, which in this case, we've already done. If the client has a partner, you may want to search and link the partner if it's a joint case, but in this case we've just left it as a single partner, and you would save that. And that's basically everything done. So in terms of the review and the fund switch, that's everything relevant to what you need to upload onto Officeweb, and that is effectively the system completed. So you don't need to go into Workbench and complete a full Workbench system. And if you already have the client saved, you actually just need to go into the client and upload the client details through Documents. Now, just to give you an indication of the review letter template, which you've got here. Now, this will be added onto the extranet. And this is just, like I say, a template, so you can actually use your own review letter. You don't need to use this, but this is just a guide that we've created so that it might be useful for you. And as you can see, everything in red you just need to edit. If there's anything in blue, that's just for yourself, so you would just delete that. And it just has full details of the, like I say, the new client fund that you're going to be transferring this into. So like I say, if you want to have a look at that, that is going to be saved on the extranet. Just want to clarify as well, with regard to restricted advisors, just so that just to confirm what I've mentioned there about the fund research. If you are going off the matrix, then if you're using the matrix, then fund research is not required. But if in terms of going off the matrix, which would be off panel, then you would need to do de facto research. But if you're actually using the fund and you stick into the intrinsic panels, then you would not be required to do any further fund research. Now, just to show you where this is in terms of the review template, in case you're wondering where it is for the moment, I'll just take you back to the intrinsic extranet. Probably need to log back in. And if you just type review into the search box, this should bring up the review template. So you can save that to your desktop. As you can just see at the bottom here, review letter template. Then we'll just review the document, and that should bring us to the document that I've just showed you there. So as you can see, this is the same document that I've just showed you, just slightly amended, so you can go in and manually change that in accordance with your client. That's just a guide, but if you've got your own template, then we're more than happy for you to use that. So you would need to upload this, like I say, into the documents in Office Web. Okay, so with regards to fund switches, it is quite a basic, straightforward process. And in terms of the review, then that's also just a case of uploading the letter onto the system with regards to what you're actually going to do for the client. And it may be that you actually, everything's fine and you're not looking to do any changes. And if that's the case, you would just upload the letter just to say that in accordance. If you are looking to do the fund switch, like I say, everything I've discussed there, you would just upload onto your letter as to the reasons for the fund switch and include your research and your letter, and also a copy of the review letter as well. So what I'm going to do now is just move on to some questions. If there's anything there that I haven't covered, if you can pop your questions into the question box. Like I say, I'll have a read through those now, and then I'll come back to you in a second with a response. I know we've just had a question through from Peter, and Peter asks, where on the extranet does the review letter appear? I know I've just shown you that you can find that on the restricted extranet, but if you can just clarify, Peter, that that's okay for you, if you can just raise your hand. That's brilliant. So everybody's okay with where to find the review letter and how to upload those onto Office Web. Like I say, the review letter that I've got here in front of me is slightly different to the review letter on the intrinsic extranet, but the one on the intrinsic extranet is the one that's obviously been signed off through compliance, so we are happy for you to use that. But these are just a guide at the moment, so you don't need to use a specific template letter. If you've got your own that you're more comfortable with, then we're happy for you to use that as well. Okay, we've also got another question through, which asks, do I need to upload copies of the signed switch forms? Intrinsic are happy that you don't need to upload these. However, we do feel that it would be best practice, especially for future reviews, just if you do have a copy of the signed switch forms, that you do upload these onto Office Web. Okay, we've just had another question through, which is, what if I'm restricted now, but the client's product is not on the panel? Can I use the matrix funds? So in that case, yes, you can use the matrix. If you don't use any of the matrix funds, though, you would need to do the de facto research. So if you've already got a client who wants to do a fund switch, or wants to review a plan that's not on our panel, then that's fine, but anything that's not shown on the matrix, you would need to do full de facto research for that. Okay, everyone, if you just bear with us, I'm just having a read through some of your questions. And don't forget as well, this has been recorded, so if you've got any queries in the future about the fund switch or the review process, then you can just go back onto the extranet and review the webinar again, or you can contact the advisor support team who will be happy to just talk you through that. We've got a question through from Anthony, and Anthony asks, can you clarify what de facto research is required for fund switches? Can we use our own fund research? In this case, Anthony, you can use your own fund research, but we would use that as a support in addition to de facto research. De facto is our sort of required research tool, so we would recommend that if you're doing a fund switch, that you do comparisons and research with the new fund based using de facto. If you want to use any additional research tools, then we're fine for you to do that as additional research as well. Has that answered your question there, Anthony? If you can just raise your hand if you're okay with that. That's excellent, thank you. Okay, we've got a question here from Mark, and Mark asks, do you need a new fact find for the fund switch, or can you rely on the last TP fact find if circumstances are unchanged? Yes, Mark, that's correct. In all cases of fund switch, you do not need to do a workbench system, so you don't need to re-input a fact find. Ideally, as best practice, again, if you do have an old fact find from the old system, if you can upload that onto the Office web system just for future reference, that would be the best scenario. But in terms of the workbench, you would only complete that if, like you say, the circumstances had changed, or if it was for a new sale or a new submission. So does that answer your question there, Mark? If I can just ask you to raise your hand if you're okay with that. Right, that's brilliant. Okay, so we've just had a question saying, do I need to set a new fee expectation? And the answer for that would be, yes, you would, if you're charging a new fee for the review that you haven't already previously recorded. So if you've already recorded that you were going to charge a fee in the previous reviews or in the previous meetings, then you wouldn't need to set up a further fee. But just to go back to Office Web, just to give you an idea as to how you would do that. So if you can all see my screen here, with regards to the fees, if you're just looking to add a new fee, you would go to the left-hand side of the screen and you would just click on fees. And as you can see, there's no fees existing because this is a new client that we've set up. So you would then go to new fee and you would just complete this accordingly. So today's date would be today, which is the 17th. And the reason for the fee would be a review, so you could have an ongoing fee, which you may have set up previously. In this case, obviously, it's a new client that we're setting up for the review, so it would be initial. And we put down investment, and if we say £200 for the fee, it would be VAT exempt. And again, the type of service would be initial one-off, and if we put it as restricted for the type of advice, and the charge structure we're going to put as fixed amount. And it says here, is the client paying or the contact paying? Well, in the case of a review, and you've set a fixed fee, it would generally be where the client would pay. So you may have a fee agreement set up as well for that. But like I say, if you've already seen the client in the past and this is just a standard review, you won't necessarily have that. So is the client paying? Yes. And as long as all of the boxes in yellow there have been saved, then that's fine. So as you can see on the next page where it says payments, you've got the amount due, which is the fee of £200. There's no VAT. Received by client / contact, which is £200. There's nothing else that we've charged. And the payments there, as you can see, for our client, which is Tony Testington. And then you would just save that, and it'll then show up under the fee section. So the invoice date, the transaction date, and the reference number, type of fee, how much the fee is, and then the final total fee. And that would be your fee set up there. Okay, so we've had a question through, which is, do I need to do anything if I do review and there is no action required? Well, yes, even if you have a meeting with the client and they're happy with everything and they're not looking to do any changes, you should still write to the client just to confirm that the review had taken place and that there's no actions currently required, and just upload that onto Officeweb just so that you've got a letter there confirming that you are completing all of your requirements as reviewing the client's needs, so that if you are charging ongoing trail fees, then you've got full evidence there that you're managing the client's expectations and you're keeping up with the annual reviews as they're expecting. We've had a question through from Mark, and Mark's asked, can I rely on a previous fee agreement, or do I need a new fee agreement each time I do a fund switch? In this case, Mark, no, you could use a previous fee agreement. If the client is paying a fee directly, it would be best practice to just have a new fee agreement in place dated as the transaction date. But you won't necessarily have to get the client to sign that because you've already got a previous fee agreement in place which states that you're going to be looking at further reviews in the future. So does that answer your question there, Mark? If you can just raise your hand to let me know that that's okay. That's brilliant. Okay, we just had a question from Paul who's asked, are we covering the shortened top-up process today? We're not covering that today, Paul. We covered that on Thursday, I believe. That is actually on our webinars section under the extranet, which again, I'll just go back to that from what I showed you at the beginning of the webinar. So as you can see, if you go to the Positive Solutions Extranet homepage, and then you go to the Advisor Support Team tab, if you just scroll down to Webinars, and then the Bed and ISA and the ISA top-up demonstration is actually on the webinar from last week. So if you get a chance, Paul, if you just want to have a look on that, but we will be doing another Bed and ISA top-up webinar in the current in the next coming weeks. So if you just keep an eye out for the webinar links on the home page. So again, they should all come up here just on the home page announcements. So is that okay there for you, Paul? Has that answered your question?